What's up, everybody, and welcome to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by the phenomenal Ajay Singh.
What's up, guys?
Today, we will be doing a deep dive spoiler review of episode 2 of The Penguin, entitled Inside Man. But quickly, before we get into spoilers, AJ, what was your overall thoughts on this episode?
I liked it. I think the first episode set the tone, and this kind of continued with that whole, uh, like he's always in danger. He always has to think quick. He's always on his feet. I think that's going to be like a running theme in this show, like how dangerous and how cutthroat rising to the top is, and how many decisions you have to make, and just all that stuff. Like what kind of person it takes to do that. So I think that's going to be the journey. Him like having to make these kinds of thrilling decisions and all the suspense building and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's the show.
Yeah, same. I really dug the first episode, and I continued to dig this episode. And you're right. I do like how they keep putting his character constantly in these situations where he's got to, talk his way through it, think his way through it very quickly, be on his feet. It keeps the tension high because he's always finding himself in these like impossible situations that he's got to kind of think his way out of.
Yeah.
This episode, we got more of his story development and more of Sophia's development. No really new. Well, I guess there was a couple new characters introduced, but nobody like super important, I don't think. But yeah, overall, really dug this episode. I'm trying to think, like, is there anything you think we should touch on, non-spoilers, before we get into spoilers?
Well, when it comes to introducing new characters, I think I don't remember these guys in the first episode. They're her family. The what's her name?
Oh yeah, we get more of Sophia's family.
Sophia's family. Her
Yeah.
uncle and I guess another uncle or his right hand man or something. I'm not sure what he is.
Yeah, basically, yeah, I think it would be his right hand man, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So we see how there's contention there, and I think that's also going to be. We see that is something that does factor in and will continue to in the future. Those two people, and I think that they were probably an important introduction in this episode. Probably, I think so.
Yeah, and we also get a couple of the Maroney family introduced as well. I don't know if they'll end up playing a big part or not.
So those two people were those Maroney people, the lady and that young man that was with her.
Yes, and
Oh,
and the lady, they don't explicitly say. I'm kind of thinking that's probably Maroney's wife, maybe, but I don't think they actually say.
well, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why later on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do know that actress though. I don't know if you've ever watched The Expanse,
Mhm.
which is like a sci-fi show that you can watch on Amazon. But she plays like a big part in that show. She's pretty good. So
I
it was cool
thought I
seeing her.
remembered her from Punisher. Was she in the Punisher? Was she like somebody's mom? Was she that young lady's mom, the detective lady?
Oh, it's quite possible. It's been too long since I saw Punisher, but I could see that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think AJ. I think without further ado, let's get into spoilers.
Let's get into it.
All right. So his episode starts off with Sophia having a nightmare about being back in Arkham Asylum. And in the nightmare, she's visited by her brother, but her brother's taken on, like, the characteristics of what happened to him in the previous episode. So first she notices that his pinky finger is missing, it's cut off. And then a mysterious figure comes up from behind and shoots him in the back of the head. And this causes her to wake up from the nightmare. And apparently, she's actually in therapy. Actually,
Hmm.
this is weird because like your sister is training to be a therapist, and she mentioned doing like the type of therapy that involves it, like the flashing light that goes back and forth,
Hmm.
and like that seemingly was what they were doing here as well, right?
EMDR, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so she wakes up and she starts freaking out, And I thought this was a bit inappropriate, but her therapist is this guy named Julian Rush, and he basically like sits down beside her and like puts his arms around her and like tells her to calm down. But I'm kind of thinking like
A little too touchy feely in that
that's
situation.
the impression I got too. Like this guy's a bit of a creep.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, like I don't remember in any like Batman based stories a character named Julian Rush. There is a character named Julian Day, which is the Calendar Man.
Hmm.
Um, and he's also featured in a story called The Long Halloween, which also features Alberto and Sophia and like the Falcon. So like I don't know if that was maybe uh, an Easter egg that maybe they're gonna like doing something with him, or if it's a totally different character or throwaway. I wasn't sure if we'll if they'll be using him more or not. So I guess he's another character we're introduced to this episode. I just have no idea whether he's going to play a prominent role or not.
Yeah, I also think like the decision by that guy to make that move on such a powerful person who's known for murdering people. I mean, is he a stupid creep at the same time? Like, does he have? I don't know. That seems like a weird person to be creepy with. Also, like, if you're gonna be creepy, wouldn't you pick like a more like appropriate, vulnerable target that you can be creepy with?
Anytime I'm creepy with a woman, I make sure she's not mob related.
Exactly. If you're gonna be creepy, no.
So yeah, he tells her that she's safe, and she tells him she's not safe. She's home. So I guess just being in Gotham, it's like it's a
I thought that was a fine line.
yeah.
That was
Yeah. So Oswald visits Sal Maroni in prison again, and this is where we're introduced to that woman he's with, and also like a young kid that'll play a larger role in this episode. Okay, so who do you think that woman is? Because you were at least saying you didn't think she was his wife.
yeah, I think that woman is like maybe his sister, Maroney's sister, or
Oh, that could
some
be.
sort of like higher up, like respected family member.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have jumped to the conclusion of wife because, like, in mob stories, that's a big thing. Is like uh, just relatives.
Yeah,
So it could totally just be like a sister. Yeah, I could see that.
yeah. I get more of like that kind of feeling because like even the way she talks, like she like our family's been this way for a long time because we do things a certain way. Like it makes it feel like she's more than just like married into the family.
Okay. Um. So Sal agrees to take credit for killing Alberto if Oswald will set it up so that he can take over the drop plant, like they kind of set up in episode 1. So Oswald tells Maroni to have his men take out the truck that's transferring the drugs, and they're going to use a FEMA truck as cover. And then he'll be in the following car. But then what happens is Oswald's boss comes in, Johnny Vitti, and he forces him to be on the truck. So again, like you were referencing, this is like the first of many times in this episode where he's going to be put in a position where he's got to like think on his feet and like get himself out of it. I will say the action that occurs in this next scene with the truck, I was a little confused about everything that happened in it. So when the truck is attacked, one of Maroni's men is injured, which I think is the same kid we saw next to Maroni in the prior scene, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So Oswald ends up having to shoot two of his guys. Um, and then the I think the driver gets shot as well, and he crashes. So then Oswald gets out and he shoots a guy, but I was unclear. Did he shoot when he was outside the truck? That guy he shot, was that one of his men? Like, was
I'm
that a
not
Falcon?
100% sure. I'm not sure.
The reason I wasn't sure is because it seemed like the other Falcone car showed up like really soon after that. So I'm like, well, he was taking a big risk if he just like, shot a Falcone guy, like, and that car came up. You know what I mean? So I was like, maybe to keep up appearances, he did actually kill one of the Maroni guys in front of them. That's what I was unclear about.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean,
But
you know, he
anyway,
would like he
right.
seemed like I think later on in the episode we see that he's willing to like cut loose ends if he has to. So
Oh, totally. Yeah. Um, but the end result is Oswald gets away and the Maronis get the drugs. Um, so as Oswald is getting yelled at by his boss, Sophia comes in and yells at everybody for not avenging her brother. She also suspects there must be a mole or a rat, somebody working with Maroni, because otherwise, how would they have known about the route they were taking, and how would they know about the FEMA truck they were using as cover?
yeah,
Um, so we're introduced to Luca, who, like you said, is her uncle, and he's who became the head of the Falcone crime family after his brother died. So Luca and Sophia have a private conversation where he basically tells her that he's in charge, and if there's a rat, he'll find out who it is. She just needs to concentrate on burying her brother. And we can see it's clear by her body language that she
yeah.
doesn't really like him, and she thinks she should be in charge.
She definitely feels like it was a very fortuitous turn of events for him. Like
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So as she leaves that, Oswald comes up to her, and Oswald tells Sophia that he thinks she's right about there being a rat, and that he'll ask around and try to find out information. And so I like this Weasley bit of his character where like he's always got to be, on like he knows he's the rat, so he's got to be on top of like, trying to make her think that it's not him.
yeah. And I think like, did you feel like they were trying to plant that seed with Sophia's uncle? That she might have kind of suspected that for the like for that position he might have been the one to make that move. Do you think there was ever that tension in this episode?
Oh, like she suspected that her uncle might be the rat.
Yeah, like anybody could be it, and that's a suspect too. Like he has a motive.
Oh,
Cause I kind of felt like she kind of pointedly made that kind of like suggestion, but
I don't remember that, but you might be right. But then again, it's like if he is the head of the Falcone family, like I don't know, how would he benefit if by the Maroni stealing the drug plant? That seems like it would hurt his standing as the leader of the family. So I don't know if she would suspect him or not.
yeah. It's just that like later on she makes a statement about him like being the head of the family, and he's like, I'm gonna forget or like choose to ignore that or forgive that you said that, and it just kind of like makes me like, well, there was some sort of tension there, like for a second anyway.
Yeah, there is definitely tension between them. But yeah, I think it's mostly just over like who should be in charge.
Mm.
Um, so she asked Oswald. Um, Also, I keep saying Oswald because I'm so used to Oswald Cobblepot, but I guess in this version of the show, like his name is Oz Cobb, like they shortened it.
I think
Uh,
well they call him Oz Cobb, but I think it's just Oswald Cobb, right? Like they took out the bull pot, they took out the English sounding part.
yeah, I mean, I assume Oz is still short for Oswald,
Yeah,
but I think they just wanted to like give him like somewhat of his own identity in the show, so they like shortened it. It's kind of weird, but it's
yeah.
fine. Um, so she asked him why he would help suss out who the rat is, and he says because he thinks that she should be the one in charge. He tells her that she's still got a power move up her sleeve, in that she can uh, basically get her brother's like secret drug shipment, and she can play that card. She says she thinks it's very convenient that Oswald would agree to help her now, and that he's desperate and she doesn't owe him anything. I do like this about her character, that she's just not some dupe that like immediately like falls for his lines. Like
Yeah.
like she is smart, and she can pick up that he's somewhat full of BS. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was obvious to us, the viewer. I felt like, well, obviously we know the whole story anyway, but even by his body language and by the dynamic that they had, I felt like that would be kind of, very easy for her to fall, like too easy for her to fall for that.
Yeah.
And the situation later on, like we get into it more like later in the episode, but there is like a difference between this and what happens later on, and I think that's a factor, and we'll get into that. But I think it was good writing here.
Yeah. Same. Um. But yeah, she says she doesn't owe him anything, and he's like, "You're right. I don't owe you anything, or you don't owe me anything. I owe you." So he's buttering up to her. So Oswald and Victor get together. Oswald tells Victor that if Sophia
Oh,
wants an
sorry,
oh, go
Zach.
ahead.
When he says "I owe you," how did you take that? Because I took that as like two meanings. Like for her, she might be thinking like, oh, he thinks he like owes me for like helping his rise or help, being part of the family or whatever the thing is. But in his eyes, he just got tortured by her. Do you think he's like tongue in cheek saying "I owe you"? Like,
Probably. You're probably right.
okay,
I didn't really think about that at the time, but yeah, that line, you're right. That line does work in that way. So you're probably right.
Hmm.
Um, so Oswald tells Victor that if Sophia wants an inside man, that he's going to find her one. Um, on the radio, okay, I found this interesting. So Sophia's in a car and the radio's playing. The radio claims that since the seawalls have come down, inmates have been let out of Arkham. And they also mention that Sophia killed 7 women as when she was the hangman, but she was exonerated. So my question is, like, with the seawalls coming down, like, they're just like letting Arkham inmates like, are they being like, you're only somewhat dangerous, like you're not the Joker, so we'll just let you back on the streets? Is that what we're supposed to believe?
I mean, when you murder 7 people and get out, I'm guessing the bar is pretty like, low
Well, that's
to
the
get.
other thing I was going to bring up with her specifically, because we didn't know the details last episode when she said she used to be this hangman character, but now we know she murdered like 7 people, and I'm just like, even like even if she was found like criminally insane, like I think most people, at least in our world, like
Mm.
even if they're legitimately found insane, if they killed that many people, like it's unlikely that they're going to be put out on the streets. Like they might not go to prison, they might stay in an Arkham type institution, but I find it hard to believe they would just let her back out on the street. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
although I guess we're supposed to believe that in this world, the city's controlled by the mob, so they probably paid off all the judges and people to look the other way and get her loose. So
I guess so. I also was surprised by the treatment she received in Arkham. Like she's a member of a big mob family. You would usually in prisons, people like that don't get mistreated. So I guess Arkham's like the one place that's untouched by the outside world because there's so many things that can get to you if you're fucking with a mobster. Like, you know, you're not safe in any way.
that's true, because in her vision at the very beginning of the episode, like the other inmates were like chanting and yelling at her, like "hangman" or something. I forget
Are they
exactly what it
all the way
was.
for some fucked up? She got out because her crimes weren't as bad as theirs. Maybe like, what are they talking about?
But then again, like I guess you could reason it out by saying like that was Arkham, and so all the other people are inmates with like mental problems. So maybe it, like instead of a prison situation where they'd be like, oh my gosh, she's mobbed up, we won't mess with her. Like
Hmm.
they're probably more like, they're crazy themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Um, so Oswald tells Victor a bit of his backstory. So apparently, He originally got into the mob because he agreed to be a driver for this guy named Pinchy, and he mentions like he didn't even know how to drive at the time. He taught himself to drive over a weekend, and he became this guy's driver. But not too long after that, this Pinchy guy talked to the feds, so Falcone killed him. But Falcone saw something in Penguin and hired him to be in his mob. So at a bar, Sophia hires a crooked detective that used to work for her father to find the inside man. And she has leverage over this guy because, he's a drop head. He's addicted to drops, and she's got drops for him. So she also pays him a bunch of money as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did they say that guy's name? I was character if he was a character they ever used in the comics, but I don't remember them ever actually like giving him a name.
I don't remember that either.
So Oswald's having a bit of a party with a bunch of like ladies of the night back at his apartment, and he introduces Victor to one of them. He says she's like a cam girl, and they start having a conversation. He tells her that he's from Crown Point, and she says she heard that place is a real no man's land, AJ, which I assume is an Easter egg to the Batman story I mentioned on last week's episode, Batman's No Man's Land, the comic book.
Okay. Huh, I didn't pick up on that. Interesting.
I mean, maybe not, but
That's got to be, right?
I kind of think so.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the whole plot of No Man's Land is a natural disaster, like messes up the city and causes different factions to war with each other. So it just seems like it, So Eve tells Oswald that she knows he killed Alberto, and that's why he needed her alibi. But she says that's putting her and her girls at risk because it's such a situation. Oswald reveals that his plan is to set Johnny up to be the inside man. Eve is worried about Sophia coming after her, but Oswald says there's nothing to worry about and that he can handle her. So this makes me think at some point in the season, Eve is either going to die or be put in serious danger.
Yeah, for sure.
That'll probably... I kind of think like, Penguin's going to win, but it's going to cost him something dearly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you think that kid Victor will die? And like Penguin's going to have like a strong relationship by that point, and he's going to like be like, that's my like heir or whatever, like my ward.
It's very possible because, I think, like, I do kind of think Penguin's going to win, but somebody he loves is dying, whether it's Eve or Victor or all of them.
Did we get to that point in this episode? Yeah, we did. He tells, did we?
Not to his mom yet, but we're getting there.
Okay, all right. So yeah, he talks to Sophia again later on about his mom too, so we'll get to that too.
So, okay, this scene confused me a little bit. So Sophia is sleeping, and she has another panic attack that wakes her up. And then she kind of goes to the sink, splashes some water on her. And we see that she kind of has like what looks like claw marks around her neck. Do you know what that was?
No. Hangman, I guess maybe it's from like somebody she was killing, like somebody was trying to fight back. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were like I wasn't sure if those were like old scars or like did she just like scratch her neck waking? I wasn't sure what that was.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll figure that out later on. Okay, so now we're getting to Oswald's mom. So he has to go to her house because Oswald's mom has a dementia episode. She went wandering off, and then until finally her landlord got her and took her back home. So Oswald dances with his mom to make her feel better. And he assures her that he will succeed, but she's got to be patient. And she's basically telling him, hey, I don't have a lot of time left, so, you gotta, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it fast.
She's a real cheerleader, this one. She's She's like, you either do it all or you're dead to me, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, she's a little bit harsh with him sometimes. Um, so Oswald goes to Alberto's funeral. Um, he tries to give the evidence on Johnny Vita to Luca, but Luca is busy and kind of ignores him. There are protesters chanting that they should send Sophia back to Arkham, which I found interesting because it's, if it were a real life situation, like I assume there probably would be people like that.
But I mean, like with the history of Gotham, like isn't there like aren't there bigger fish to fry? Like shouldn't you all be? First of all, there's a vigilante group out there that was just waging war on the city for one other guy. Like,
That's true. That's true.
but like beyond that, that's just a side character to all the shit that's going on in your city. Like you got the Joker, you got Two-Face, you got all these. I don't know if they're established yet or not, but
I know. Yeah. To be fair, we haven't been introduced to like any other villains, but yeah. Eventually, like these guys could protest all the time, like 50,000
yeah.
different people.
At this
They'll
point, like there's probably like a fan base for these villains. Like there's probably like somebody out there who's like, you guys are so mainstream being fans of the Joker and the Riddler. I'm cool because I'm fan of like who's like an obscure fucking villain that's like an indie rock band to these people. I don't know. Like, do you know anybody like DC version?
oh, like a deep
D-list
cut villain or
superhero,
something.
like a D-list superhero
Let me
or
see.
villain.
The one that always comes to mind is Condiment King, but I don't think anybody would be a fan of it.
No, we'll
So
go with that. Yeah, we'll go with like somebody who's like counterculture, or like has to be different. They're like, no, Condiment King is the best. Yeah, that's for sure. There'd be fan bases for these people if there were that many villains out there. Like there are fan bases for serial killers. There are people who keep stats and all kinds of stuff on that shit.
you know what? It is weird that if in our world, if there were these like flamboyant costume villains that were serial killers and did these elaborate crimes, they all would have these psycho fan bases for
Oh, for
sure.
sure. They would have huge fan bases. There'd be so many people living out their like evil killer fantasies through these people and like boosting them and being like, yeah, show them, whatever. Like, yeah, for sure. The Bonnie and Clyde thing, we saw that like in their age, like they were out there robbing. They were literally robbing the people who were cheering for them. Who do you think had money in those banks? Those dummies who were like, yeah, show them what for. But yeah, you motherfucker, that's you who's being shown what's for. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't cuss, but
I think sometimes like people do root for the criminals, especially if it seems like in their mind it's like they're stealing from the rich. Like,
mm-hmm.
oh, they're robbing a bank, like they're robbing the rich. It's not really that way in reality.
Yeah.
I guess if you look at them these days with the money being like insured, like maybe it is kind of like that. But like these days, nobody really gets away with robbing banks anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Okay, so this is the scene you were talking about. Oswald tells Sophia the story about when his brothers died. He said his mom stayed in bed for a month, and then one day she got dressed up and took him out to a jazz club, and they danced all night to get over the grief. He tells Sophia basically not to let the grief take control of her. So they leave, and they go to like
conversation. There was I picked up on that he did talk about his mother being dead, right? He did say that she had passed away, or it's talked about her like in a way that made her appear to be not no longer of that world, right? Like, so it seemed like.
Well, I just think she was out for that month, and he might have said something like it felt like she was already gone or something. I don't remember his exact dialogue there.
I thought like at the very end he said like I didn't get to ask her before she left or something, before she went away or something like that, and maybe gave me the impression that she was trying to like he was trying to protect or shield his mother from any kind of possible consequences that might arise from his actions. So I thought he was trying to like remove that piece from the board, like say, oh, she's
Oh,
dead.
like make Sophia think that his mother was already dead.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. I didn't pick up on that when I was watching the episode, but that could be.
Hmm.
I'd have to go back and watch again.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have my doubts. I'm not sure.
So they go to like this after party back at the Falcone mansion, and that detective shows up, and he brings Sophia, like one of Maroney's men, the guy that was shot in the beginning. He like somehow stole him out of the hospital, and he's still like hooked up to the morphine bag.
Hmm.
And he says this guy will, give you the answers. So they take that guy down to the basement, and she's basically like, "Let me know when he wakes up so we can get the answers." So the Penguin, or Oswald, he is called by the Maronis, and whoever the woman is, the sister, the wife, whoever she is, she's there, and basically they're about to kill Oswald because their guy got taken. So
Hmm.
out of desperation, he gives them the evidence on Johnny Vitti, which is the picture of him. We find out it's basically a picture of him having relations with Luca's wife.
Yeah, and that's where the woman in the video is much different looking to me than the woman who was like conversing earlier in the episode on behalf of the family. So I feel like that's probably a different woman because this woman's blonde, she's brunette. It just kind of looked like a different person to me.
Well, the woman in the picture is a Falcone because she would be Luca's wife, whereas this woman is like Maroney's, the woman that was with Maroney.
Oh, I'm mixing up Falcone and Maroney. Okay, okay, I see. Jeez, wow. Okay,
They do
yeah,
rhyme, I guess.
yeah.
um, so the Maroney woman tells Oswald that he better get their man back, or because if he talks, he's going to have a lot to say about Oswald. So Sophia goes to the funeral party, and I wrote she starts eating crazy while people talk behind her back. This is a weird thing with her because she did this in the first episode too when she goes to the restaurant. Like when she eats, she just kind of eats off like fast and crazy, like shoves a bunch of food in her mouth.
I'm thinking in Arkham, like food is like a scarcity. Like you don't get a lot of time to eat, maybe, or you don't get a lot of food. Everybody's going after it at once. I'm not sure, but I
That
think
could be
that's.
that would actually be like a good explanation.
Mm.
They should write that in. Um, Also, like people do really talk uh, behind her back and say things when they're like, they know this woman's a serial killer, right? like,
Right. Yeah, and she's
like
powerful.
I would be so nice to her.
Yeah,
I would not be saying anything about her.
like she can for sure get you killed in a variety of ways. Like she'll do it herself if she has to.
Yeah, either herself or have one of her minions do it. Like,
Yeah.
um, so Oswald and Victor drive to the party. Their plan is for Victor to plant some jewels, the ones that Oswald got from Alberto after he killed him, and he's gonna have Victor plant those jewels in Johnny's car, while he looks for Maroney's missing injured man. Okay, another weird scene. So Sophia is greeted by her cousin, this woman named Carla, and
Hmm.
like they seem very friendly.
Hmm.
Uh, like the thing is like Carla didn't have to strike up a conversation with her. It seemed like she
Yeah.
wanted to. She seemed like friendly, but
Yeah.
then Carla's daughter shows up, and she gets all uncomfortable and weird because Sophia's like next to her daughter. But I'm like, if you thought she was this dangerous, why did you strike up a conversation in the first place? Like you and your daughter could have just like passed right on by. And
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. It's just I'm like this Carla chick. I was like, you don't seem like you have good instincts here.
Yeah, and also her other instinct of like shielding her child during that conversation. What did you think was going to happen in the middle of a funeral in front of everybody? You know, like you obviously didn't provoke any attack. Did you think she was just a rabid pit bull? Like that, like what is going on?
I was the same thing in my mind. I'm like, what, you think she was just gonna like choke your daughter to death, like right
Yeah,
there? Like, she's much more likely to do something to you now that you were all weird. Like,
yeah. Now you've given her like a negative thing to react to. Yeah, for sure. And
so
she lets her
yeah,
know.
that was just a weird scene. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Victor ends up getting caught by security trying to put the jewels in the car, and he has to run away. Oswald sneaks down to the basement and um, tells Maroney's man to claim that Vitti is the inside man, that Johnny Vitti is the inside man, and he agrees to that. But then Victor calls Oswald and tells him that he failed to get the jewels into the car. So now Oswald realizes like he's got to change up what he's going to do. So he ends up stabbing this Maroney's guy to death. So Luca and Sophia discover the dead body, and they gather up everybody who is involved with the transport, including Oswald, because they know one of them have to be the rat. So Oswald gets in a skirmish with Johnny, and this guy that's like Sophia's right hand man, who also tortured Oswald in the first episode. Oswald is able to slip the murder knife into his pocket, that guy's pocket. So he gets implicated as the rat. Do you happen to remember that guy's name? I know they said it. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. Just random right hand man.
He was a real loyal guy.
Yeah.
Real. Yeah.
So yeah, he plants a knife on that guy, and so Luca just takes out his gun and shoots that guy. So this causes Sophia to yell at Luca for killing him because she's wanted revenge for her brother. Also, like, I don't know, like, it was kind of flimsy evidence. Like, okay, they find this knife on this guy, but like, are they sure nobody else is hiding a knife? I guess presumably they. I don't know. It just seemed like they were really quick to be judge, jury, and executioner of this guy. Like they didn't even let this guy try to tell his side of the story.
Exactly.
So Luca tells Sophia that maybe it's time that she left Gotham. He tells her that she should go to Italy, and she agrees to that. But we can kind of see by her demeanor that she's just telling him that, and that she really does not have plans to go away.
Yeah.
So Oswald and Victor are forced to bury the dead bodies. I thought this was kind of messed up. Oswald forces Victor to get in the grave and lay on top of the dead bodies. And he basically says, this is what happens when you choke. Like, you got to think on your feet.
Chill out, dude. That kid's like, he's stuttering and shit. Like, you know he gets nervous. He hangs on your every word. All you got to do is say it to him. He doesn't have to fucking do that to him.
I mean, it's a good reminder that, like, we really shouldn't be rooting for Oswald because he is a bad guy. It's kind of like the Breaking Bad thing where, like, you shouldn't really root for Walter White, but you kind of do.
I get that. So there's another way to see it this too, right? There's always like a different perspective. And for me, I could see this as he does take life very seriously. Like there was that scene earlier where he saw that kid die, where he saw Sophia shoot that kid, in front of him. And like, I don't know, he doesn't talk about if that's impacted him at all. It seems like it didn't, just rolled off of him. But then he does have this moment in this episode where he does tell this kid, like, look how seriously your actions, can affect people. Like, these two guys are dead. Like, their lives were in your hands. You had so much responsibility and you failed them. Like, I think I don't know. He, of course, he was talking about his selfishly. He was talking about his own life also, like in there, like you almost got me killed. Look at what I had to
Right.
do. But I don't know. Like, I guess you could say that he does try to play the game with a limited number of casualties and the right casualties.
Right. Yeah, the right casualties.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's pretty cutthroat, but at the same time, like he
I
does
mean,
seemingly care about certain people.
he tells that story at the very beginning, which sets the tone. Like, is that he doesn't revere that guy who did help the community and use his power for good.
Yeah, that's
So I
true.
mean, it does make you feel like there's like a Machiavellian approach to this whole thing, like where he's by any means necessary getting to the top, but he feels like maybe once he gets there, he's going to help the little guy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Sophia calls Oswald and has him meet her inside her family's mausoleum. Um, she says she found the jewels at her enforcer's apartment. And I think in the scene before, Oswald mentioned that, because Victor failed, he had to plant the jewels in that guy's apartment.
Yeah.
Um, she said that she's not going to let her family push her out, and she's going to take from them now. She asks Oswald if he's in, and he says, "Let's dance." That's a reference to his conversation before, and that's how the episode ends. So now Sophia and Oswald are basically partnered up, trying to, you know, she thinks get her to the head of the family, but of course, the whole time he's plotting to get to the head of the family.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any way this season ends with actually like Sophia winning and being the head of the family?
Yeah. I could. And I could. Well, no. I'm sorry. I don't, because I think Colin Farrell made it quite clear that he doesn't want to wear this suit ever again.
That's true. I would
So,
be a little surprised if they do a season two.
yeah.
Although I have heard the show ratings wise is doing very well, and money does talk. So
Money, yeah, money will make Colin Farrell do anything, I bet. Yeah. All right. Well, um, I think if they're confident they can get him back, then well, they've already written this, so I don't know. I don't know how confident they were about season two going into this, so that definitely has an impact on what I think they must have written here. But I'm gonna go with the idea that Sophia does get in control, and then it's all about dealing with her in the next season, because maybe she becomes like the bad, like she's on to him now. She's figured it out that he was the one who killed Albert, or something like that.
it's one of those things where if I thought they were for sure like setting up for a season two, I would kind of agree with that. But since
Right.
like it's in question whether Colin Farrell will ever do this again, like I kind of suspect it. Like in the end, like I was saying before, Penguin will win, but someone close to him will die. Do you think Sophia
His
makes it
mom.
out alive? Like I could see
Oh,
her ending up dead by the end of this season.
I see her back in Arkham. That's her worst nightmare. Like, that's the place where she got out from, is where the story starts from. It's her purgatory. Like, it's her hell, actually. So I think,
That would actually be great. Like because then if they did a season two, like it could be like maybe she gets out of Arkham again. And I really like that as an ending for her, like her ending up in Arkham again. I think that would be great.
yeah,
I kind of hope that happens now.
I do
Yeah, that would be
too.
cool.
I think she's a good character. You want to keep her around.
She is a great character, and that actress, Cristin Milioti, I think,
Mhm.
she's really good, man.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Yeah, she's such a small person, but plays such a big personality in this show. Like, she's intimidating. So
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. She seems legitimately intimidating,
mm-hmm.
and very, very smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, AJ, any final thoughts or things you want to go over before we call it an episode?
I'm sure there's a ton. You tell me first, and then I'll think. But right now, I just want to say to everyone, you just watched a whole episode of me stoned.
Could you tell the
Yeah,
telltale signs?
I bet you could.
um,
Okay, so did we talk about on here? I don't remember if we did about Null being in the
oh yeah,
Sony.
yeah, yeah. You did mention that
We talked about them. Okay, all right.
about being in Venom.
Mhm.
Um,
That sucks.
oh, one thing I saw a headline. I didn't read the article, so I'm not. I saw they're looking into possibly doing on the DC side villain-based movies, like one for Bane and one for Deathstroke. And
Oh,
I do
that's,
not like that idea, to be
you
honest. Like,
don't?
no, I like those characters, but I don't want them to be the star of a movie. I would love to see them as villains in a Batman movie or a DC movie, but I don't know because the thing is just like with those Sony movies that are based around villains, you have to make them anti-heroes so that people can kind of in a way root for them. I mean, kind of like they're doing with the Penguin here, I guess. And I don't know. I would rather them use their resources of because they can only make so many movies. I don't know. I would rather them use their resources to make like mainline like hero movies and then have those guys, be villains within those movies. I don't know. I'm not hot on the idea of them having solo films. Not to say that they couldn't be great, but I don't know. It just my first thought is it doesn't really appeal to me.
See, I think I'm on the other side here. Like, I feel like here you get the opportunity to establish the heel turn, right? Like, they, we always wonder, like, what makes a person all of a sudden want to kill millions of people, right? Like, when you kill millions of people, you're killing children, babies, you're killing
Right,
good,
right.
bad, whatever. So, I do kind of like the criticism always is that there's always these paper cutter, cookie cutter, black and white heroes, or villains. And I think this is a good way. This is why I think Loki is so popular because, he is given a backstory and you understand that he's hurt by his lineage. He's hurt by, or at least the way he was raised and what he thought was his lineage is not, and all that stuff. He feels tricked and betrayed and his birthright's taken away from him. There's so many emotions and stuff, right? And he's childish too. And all of that is charming in a way. It plays to his character. But I do get what you're saying. He's an anti-hero, right?
Yeah.
But I think there was a point where it did explain his heel turn, right? And that did make him a good villain. He was charming still, but I think there was a reason he was charming after that because we felt something for him. We were like, okay, well, this guy, he was raised by the people who betrayed him, like whatever. He was lied to his whole life. And he was always second to the biological son too, right? So he didn't get a fair shot at that, right?
Right.
So there's that too. They thought he had. So yeah, I think making these villain stories, I see a lot of potential there. Like you could really give a lot of value to these villains. There's a lot of nuance, and now when they say things, you could have them be more meaningful, like reaching back to their memory as a child. Like people do this. This is why I'm doing this because I know from my past, from my history, and we know it too now. Like we've seen him go through these trials and tribulations, and what made him so, jaded, or what caused whatever reason is, that they're the bad guy. We see that evolution happen. And I think there's a lot to draw on that in the future when you have these, confrontations with good guys. Like you could almost have that, like they're almost on the same page, but they're also seeing it completely differently, So I don't know. There can be parallels to the way they grew up and the good guy grew up, but they both reacted to something differently. And we see that now. We see like, I don't know. There's a lot there, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential there. I guess the big difference is like in those Sony movies, like it doesn't seem like we're gonna ever have see those villains interact with Spider-Man, which at this
Don't
point I
get me
really
started.
wouldn't want
Don't get
to.
me started, dude. Oh my god.
At this point, I wouldn't even want to see that. But like with these DC ones, like I guess potentially, like if they do a really good Bane movie, and then he shows up in a Batman movie or whatever, like you don't have. First of all, you wouldn't have to dedicate as much time to the given the villain development because people would already be coming in with that.
Yeah.
And then you could potentially get more drama out of whatever Batman ends up doing to Bane or whatever because we
You
know
could
his
lead
story.
into the movie. You could lead into it with the villain movie. You know, you like maybe Batman's already active in the world or not, but you can see the rise of this villain, and then maybe the reaction to that is Batman, who's like this guy who's like, what, this guy, there's all this violence going on, this one organization is behind it or whatever the deal is, and it could be like tied to each other, like one feeds the other. So I feel like it's almost like Marvel, right? They tied things like with the Avengers initiative and stuff like that. There's like they weaved it together. So I think you could tie these all together in that way.
But then again, like I said, I didn't read the article, so for all I know, maybe these aren't even meant to tie into the broader DC James Gunn universe. Maybe they're meant to be like the Joker movie and just be like their own thing. I don't know.
I feel like DC's already messing up with this approach, though. Like I like the Batman, that's great, but all in all, like you got to think of the long term strategy here, and overall their goal is to create a successful cinematic overarching story, right? Like a universe with an overarching story that brings all their characters together, right? Is that I imagine that is what they're trying to recreate here, right? With James Gunn.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they're basically trying to do the Marvel thing and having a
Yeah, so I
shared
mean,
universe.
Marvel didn't complicate things. This like, Marvel, it was already complicated with so many projects. People are like, which one do I watch first? People got into it late, don't know. There's so many variables. Like, don't complicate things when they don't need to be. They're already going to get complicated somewhere around along the way anyway. So I think having these other movies, these other shows, all this stuff. Look, I watch the shows, but you know, you got to make it clear what's what. I know the animated shows are animated shows. I can tell that much. But when you have like Robert Pattinson's The Batman, and then you're releasing, other characters from the actual DCEU, you're going to be causing confusion.
Yeah, I mean, I assume they'll try to make it as clear as possible. I mean, to people like us that follow it, like it's no problem. But like, I could definitely see for like people who don't, like it'll get confusing because even if we know the Robert Pattinson movies are separate, like there's going to be other people that once like the James Gunn movies start, they're going to be like, oh wait, this Batman isn't. They're going to be somewhat confused. So
I
if I was them, I wouldn't do too many like Elseworld type projects.
well, wait, so now my question is, what is Superman? Is he just DCEU Superman, or is he his own project again?
He's basically the kickoff to the James Gunn
Okay.
every connected universe. Yeah,
You think from that point forward it's gonna be just the DCEU, or you think it could
I
just?
think it's certainly going to be mostly, except for the patents and stuff. I mean, uh,
I
you
guess
know,
by then people will know Pattinson's different. Like by the third
yeah,
movie, I don't think anybody's gonna, unless you're late to the game.
yeah. I'm sure they've had these discussions when they announced like the Batman movie they were going to do. Like it was going to be an older Batman. He was already going to have Damian, um, and so that really wouldn't fit in with the Robert Pattinson Batman. But like, I could do it. Like the Batman Damian stuff doesn't really appeal to me that much anyway. So like, if they would just wanted to scrap that and be like, okay, you know what, the Pattinson Batman is in the James Gunn universe, like I would be okay with that. But I don't think they're doing that because that,
So that Batman, Damian is his son, Damian Wayne.
yeah,
Okay, so he becomes Robin.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't. That's not appealing to me either.
yeah, same. Um, it seemed like it was going to take a lot of inspiration from the Grant Morrison Batman comic book run, and I'm not a fan of that stuff. So that I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't appeal to me.
I think I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to Batman being like kind of more serious, and I just feel like having his son is kind of silly. You know, it's campy. I guess it can be done in a serious way, but I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of think like the Batman when they use for that movie, like I'm sure he'll still seem like he won't be like goofy Batman or something, but I bet tonally it'll be a little bit lighter than like the Pattinson movie.
Okay. Yeah, I
That'd be
imagine
my
it.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, AJ. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I can't cry and moan about Sony every episode, so let's do it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for following along. If you will, please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also subscribe to us in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, positive reviews, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me over at Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. Uh, but until next time, we hope you are enjoying the review. Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.